So let's sit back, Jacques.
Yes.
Enjoy your mint juleps. And welcome back, Sarah Kane, with our Art Talk number 48. And we also have Dick Easom, our very own horse expert.
Over to you, Dick and Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Loving the hats and the outfits and the mint juleps. So yes, I think Lucky is pulling up the PowerPoint. There it is. Perfect. Great. So yes, today we are talking about the art of horse racing, the Kentucky Derby, and we'll start here with a picture of Churchill Downs. So Churchill Downs, we'll just start with the first slide, please, the cover slide. So thank you. So Churchill Downs is a horse racing complex located on Central Avenue in Louisville, Kentucky, famed for hosting the annual Kentucky Derby. So it officially opened in 1875 and was named for Samuel Churchill, whose family was prominent in Kentucky for many years. The overall capacity of Churchill Downs is about 170,000, but due to COVID this year, there will only be about 20 to 30,000 spectators at the track. So horses, specifically racehorses, have long been a favorite subject of artists. So we'll look at some of the best paintings of racehorses. Next slide, please. So this is Jockeys Before the Tribune by Edgar Degas. And Degas is one of the most famous painters of racehorses. If you remember our art talk of him a few weeks back, you'll recall that he was an instrumental painter during the Impressionist movement. So this piece was done in 1878 and was rather large at 40 by 30 inches. So beginning in the 1860s, Degas completed at least 45 oil paintings of horses and even kept a taxidermied horse in his studio for guidance. The artist said that he was interested in horses because of their complex anatomies and especially appreciated racing's movements and the vibrant colors seen in the jockey silks, as we can see with in this painting with the deep green and the bright coral of their uniforms. But what's unique about this painting is that it's a seemingly banal moment, not taking place during the actual race, which was seen as a display of Degas' dedication to the subject of racehorses. We'll look at a lot of these paintings where it's mid-race, mid-movement, but this is kind of an in-between moment, so it's a really unique piece. Next slide, please. This piece is called Whistle Jacket by George Stubbs, who was a self-trained English painter in the 18th century. And this is his most famous work. And Stubbs's portraits of horses were prized among British royals and nobility for their unusually realistic qualities. And you can kind of see the light reflecting off the horse's shiny coat and every muscle in the horse's legs. It's almost photographic in a way. And an interesting and kind of gross fact is that in his early 30s, Stubbs spent a year and a half dissecting horse carcasses on his own time to better understand their anatomy. But it clearly paid off because his accuracy was of note. And this piece is almost 10 feet by 8 feet, which is huge to begin with, let alone the fact that there's no background. It's just the horse on display. So it's quite a feat. Next slide, please. This is the Derby at Epsom by Théodore Géricault, done in 1821. And like Stubbs before him, Géricault needed time with horses to gain a better understanding of their anatomy. So after studying at the Louvre, he didn't dissect any carcasses, but he found work in the palace stables at Versailles, where he could watch the horses in motion. And Géricault painted the Derby at Epsom during his travels to England, where horse racing was much more popular. And his work reflects the intensity of an important race, not only in its depictions of the horses and riders going all out, but also through the dramatic sky and the resulting shadows. Next slide. Eadweard Muybridge, was an English photographer important for his pioneering work in photographic studies in motion and early work in motion picture projection. He was born in England and came to America when he was 20 years old. And this 3-second film is part of a film he did in 1878 called The Horse in Motion. And as you can see, it captures multiple frames of the horse in motion, revealing the mechanics of how they run. So the history behind this is that in 1872, the former governor of California, Leland Stanford, a businessman and racehorse owner, hired Muybridge for a portfolio of his possessions, which included his mansion and his racehorse Occident. So the session of the horse at that time turned out to be kind of fuzzy, not the best quality. So in 1877, Muybridge returned and did another photo session of the horse, this time resulting in a much more clear moving picture, as you can see here. And a fun fact about the horse in motion is that Liz Stillman's great-grandfather's cousin was involved in the photo sessions, which is so exciting.
That's very cool.
Yes. Next slide, please. So we're changing courses a little bit and looking at a much more modern expression of racehorse-inspired art. So this is Lyrically by Russian artist Wassily Kandinsky. And he was an abstract painter in the early 1900s and developed a style that really focused on color and form. And this is a very obvious depiction of color and form. And he was also a professor, and he argued that art free of references to the physical world could be just as spiritual as any traditional scene. So really, I guess what that means is that Kandinsky wasn't really caught up on painting what everyone thought a horse and jockey should look like. He made several paintings and prints of horses with riders, which he kind of used as a metaphor for moving beyond realism. So his important 1913 woodcut here, Lyrically, depicts a racehorse and the rider in a crouched pose, which was actually which was popularized around the turn of the century. So now I will hand it off to Dick, who will finish the presentation. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Sarah. Honored to share the art talk with you. So moving on, this is Willie Shoemaker by Andy Warhol. Warhol is the pop art master, needs no introduction. Not necessarily into the sport of horse racing, but he was keenly interested in the glamour associated with it. He photographed four-time Kentucky Derby winning jockey Willie Shoemaker in 1978, and then created a silkscreen of the image for a portrait to be included in his 1978 Athlete series. This was commissioned by his friend, California collector Richard Weissman, and the series was reproduced in a variety of color schemes, typical Warhol. This also included Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Muhammad Ali, Chris Evert, Rod Gilbert, Dorothy Hamill, Jack Nicklaus, Pele, O.J. Simpson, and Tom Seaver. In '82, a few years later, Warhol actually attended the Kentucky Derby and took snapshots of Gato del Sol's triumph from his grandstand box. So next slide, please. Okay, this is one that I wanted to include. I actually have this hanging in my lounge. This is a daily double by Michael Godard. Godard's a very commercially successful painter with a penchant for the bright and bold, who was born in 1960 in Southern California, attended the University of Nevada in Las Vegas and the Art Center College of Design in Pasadena. Did a number of jobs before he turned to fine art as a career. The trademark olive that's in pretty much all of his artwork came to life. He was camped in hospital for months as his daughter suffered from brain cancer. And these personified bright green olives popped off the black background and set the groundwork for his rise in the art world. And today, his paintings are very easily identified. The moment you see a Godard, you know what it is. He documented his life in the autobiographical Don't Drink and Draw, which was awarded Art Book of the Year. And you can find his pieces hanging on the walls around the world, from cruise ships to the officers' lounge at the Pentagon.
I actually finally get it, Dick.
Right.
Daily double.
Daily double, exactly. So for this particular, there's an interesting anecdote that goes with this particular print. And I'm sure this was inspired, no pun intended, actually pun intended, by the twin spires at Churchill Downs. He said, "I have not painted horses for some time. When a client commissioned this painting, the reaction I get from people over this piece really kills me. You see, some of the horses have only 3 legs. When people bring this to my attention, I say, oh, really? When was the last time you saw an olive riding a horse with 4 legs? Next slide, please, Lucky. Okay, this is a race by Luis Cruz Azaceta. I will not attempt the Spanish pronunciation. He spent most of his life, most of his career, melding the bright colors of his homeland, Cuba, with trends in abstract art in the United States, where he's lived and worked for more than 50 years. While his subject matters comment on critical issues of contemporary life, the scenes also draw from his everyday life. Racing motifs regularly find their way into his paintings, especially racetrack ovals, which fit well within the rounded forms that permeate his work and also relate to the rhythms of life, endlessly repeating, but with new struggles and infinite variations. In this 2009 painting, Race, chess piece horses of different colors are spread out around an inner turf course, which unfolds from the rest of the work's abstract dreamscape. A resident of New Orleans for the past 20-odd years, Azaceta counts handicapping among his passions, and he's a regular presence on the second floor of the grandstand at the fairgrounds, which is the New Orleans racetrack. His work can be found in collections around the world, including the Museum of Modern Art, the Metropolitan, the Whitney, and the Smithsonian. So let's get Kentucky art themed. Next slide, please, Lucky. So I don't know whether you're aware, but every year you've got the Kentucky Derby, which is obviously the great race, you know, the most famous 2 minutes in the world. But there's also a big festival, and it stretches actually, you know, it goes for like a month before the Kentucky Derby. And, you know, they have, it celebrates spring and the Derby, and they have events like Thunder over Louisville, which is one of the nation's largest annual fireworks extravaganza. They have a half and full marathon, hot air balloon events. They have the Great Steamboat Race, where historic paddle wheelers race up and down the Ohio River, and the Pegasus Parade, which features inflatables, mascots, the usual stuff, which travels over 60 miles through over 35 neighborhoods around Louisville over the race weekend. So they do it over 2 days. And to celebrate the event and to you know, promote the event, they have an official poster. And this is the official poster for this year. It's created by Andy Perez, who is a visual artist, illustrator, and graphic designer, originally from Kentuckiana. He studied at the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design and now lives in Louisville. His work has been featured in publications and galleries around the US, and he works on a variety of projects, including editorial, conceptual, and advertising. So for this year's poster, he actually said, I wanted to create a poster for the Kentucky Derby Festival for as long as I can remember. I was awarded the opportunity with the 2021 version of the poster. So this is actually created from previous posters. All of the bits of the wings of Pegasus are actually cut out from previous posters. So that's quite a clever idea. And you can actually see there the hot air balloons on the left, and on the right-hand side, the fireworks exploding from the Thunder over Louisville. And then if you look on the left-hand side, the bottom left where the date is, you'll see in 2021, there's actually a COVID virus.
Right.
So it's kind of neat, right?
Well,
yeah. So for the last one, Lucky, last slide, please, on this deck. We're actually going to go to photography. And this is a photograph very near and dear to my heart, because this is taken by Barbara Livingston, who is an amazing photographer. She is the chief photographer for the Daily Racing Form. She's won 2 Eclipse Awards, which are like the Oscars of the horse racing world. Lives in Saratoga Springs, New York, produced 6 books, including lots of pictures of older horses called Old Friends and More Old Friends. And she has a BFA from Syracuse. And this is the amazing thing about Barbara. She was born with bad vision and had eye surgery when she was young. She only uses her left eye for vision, and her right eye only sees shadows and shapes. So she really only sees in 2D, which is a bit like a photograph. So I don't know whether that helps her or...
Like an advantage.
Yeah. I actually saw Barbara at Belmont in New York a couple of years ago. didn't get to say hi, unfortunately. This is a picture she took at last year's Kentucky Derby. And this is, I'm actually proud to say, my horse, Authentic, in the blue noseband, which is characteristic of the trainer Bob Baffert, winning the Kentucky Derby a length and a half ahead of Tis the Law. Here he is on the left with the white noseband. And I say I'm proud to say this because my wife and I actually have shares in Authentic. So that was a very pleasant day when he won. And the jockey there is Johnny V, John Velasquez. So that's really the tie-up for our art talk. And I think AJ, I'm going to go straight into the stamps, right?
Yes, excellent.